Hello, my digestion friends! Today, I'm going to be giving you updates about how my digestive health is doing. This is my journey about how I'm healing irritable bowel syndrome, diarrhea predominant, SIBO, gut dysbiosis, how it's influencing my hormonal endocrine system. I'm in it, I'm on the journey, and I've been in it for 10 years. So before I go into my Rifaximin experience, where I'm at now, what I'm doing next, I'm always going to do a brief historical overview so that people understand where I'm at. So I started having chronic diarrhea about 10 years ago when I was 18, 19 years old. I went to the doctor and I told them that I was having chronic diarrhea, and at around that same time I had just gotten a titanium tooth implant in my jaw and had been on multiple rounds of antibiotics. So I go to the doctor, I tell them I'm having chronic diarrhea. They tell me to go on an elimination diet for dairy and wheat. And that's exactly what I did. And I actually pretty much cut dairy out of my diet. It took me maybe 4 years to actually start really being serious about it. But over those 4 years, for the first couple of years, I was doing it maybe at 80%, was noticing a difference with the dairy. And then for the following couple of years, the diarrhea came back even though I was being more strict about the dairy, and I just was still having issues. And when I went to the doctors and asked them about it, they just kept being like, well, you should just keep trying an elimination diet. You're probably intolerant to some foods. So then I pursued alternative healing. I saw a herbalist for about 2 years. She prescribed me tinctures and teas and different kind of ways of calming my body down, and it was really great to work with her because she was providing me a lot of emotional support. She was like donation-based sliding scale. I couldn't afford much. I was a young 20-year-old. So that's what I could afford. That's what I did. Unfortunately, it didn't help me really with any of my issues. So then fast forward another few years, I start taking hormonal birth control. I've taken it on and off throughout my life. I took it and it created intense inflammation in my body. I started getting chronic cystic painful adult acne, as well as just my digestive issues getting really bad. And that really spurred a huge mental and emotional and physical crisis in my life. I worked on healing that. I have a whole video about that. And I went to the doctor. I'm like, hey, I still have like really bad diarrhea. I'm really trying to figure this out. They're like, you have irritable bowel syndrome. You should go on a low Fodmap diet. Now, I at that point had gone on so many different kinds of diets: paleo, vegan, raw vegan, keto, low fat, high carb, high fat, low carb. Like, I had tried so many things at that point, but I hadn't tried low Fodmap diet. I go on a low Fodmap diet, really strict for a month. No changes. My symptoms didn't get any better. So basically my doctor says, this is a psychosomatic thing. The stress in your life is causing this. I was in graduate school pursuing a master's degree. I'm like, hey, maybe it's the stress. Maybe that's true. So for the following 2 years, I gave up. I stopped trying. I did not pursue any sort of treatment. And I just was living a really stress-free life. I had just graduated from my master's program the following 2 years. I just kept it easy. After those 2 years, my symptoms kept getting worse, and I still had chronic diarrhea. And so not only was I having digestive issues, but my digestive issues started affecting my hormonal system. And I started, obviously I was having issues with the hormonal birth control and healing from the hormonal birth control, but I started having spotting during my ovulation cycle, which really freaked me out. I went to multiple doctors, did lots of tests, and they were just kind of like, we don't really know why this is happening, but it's not anything serious. It's not endometriosis or anything like that. So you just are one of the rare people who have ovulatory spotting. Okay, so that happened, and the symptoms getting worse, the ovulatory spotting, it had been 2 years, nothing was getting better. I was like, I need to figure this out. We're getting like into the 10-year mark of me having chronic diarrhea and these digestive issues, bloating, abdominal pain when I go to the bathroom. So now, if you watched my last video, you'll know that I did Rifaximin. I did 1 round of Rifaximin, and it made my symptoms worse. I had worse acne. My diarrhea was bad. You know, it was just a whole video. Watch it. I talk about my experience. It didn't get better. My symptoms did not get better, so I decided to do a 2nd round of Rifaximin. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how it went. So I did that 2nd round of Rifaximin. My side effects were not nearly as bad. Literally, barely even noticed it. I didn't experience fogginess, tiredness, sore throat, weird stomach heat. Like, I didn't experience any of that. I still continued to have acne that was pretty bad. You can actually see it's getting a little better now, but it was not good. Basically, the whole Rifaximin experience was really activating to my digestive issues, and to everything. So, you know, I took the 2nd round, and not only did I do that, but I also decided to do a really strict low Fodmap diet for 2 weeks after the 2nd round of Rifaximin, just to really get those frickin' bacteria, you know? So I did the low Fodmap diet, extreme, maybe like 95%. I even cut out coffee, y'all, and I love coffee. No sugar, nothing, nada. And you know what? Didn't do shit, okay? Did the low Fodmap diet, still had chronic diarrhea. Still, y'all, all right? So that happened. You know, still was having acne, like, still was having ovulatory spotting. The ovulatory spotting went away after the 1st round of Rifaximin, and then it came back. So, you know, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. You know, so anyways, it was unsuccessful. The Rifaximin was unsuccessful. So I just met with my GI doctor this past week and my naturopath doctor, and boy, do I have a lot of updates to share with you guys about where I'm going next. What am I going to do next? So this is my experience. This is what I have learned. This is what I am being told by medical professionals. If you have information that's different, let me know in the comments below. Okay, so basically what I'm doing is getting a whole bunch of tests done from my GI doctor. I basically met with him. I was like, look, I've done all these things. Nothing's getting better. I feel like I'm going crazy. I feel like I'm dying. I feel like I'm like needing to be serious. Like, I need more tests done. I basically just had to like just convince him to like do more tests. I've done tests like years ago, like for like, you know, Crohn's disease and IBD and like, you know, gonorrhea, and like I did all of that stuff, but it's been a while. And so he was like, look, your symptoms are getting worse. Let's do a lot of tests. So I'm going to read them out to you, and I'll just put them in the description below. I'm getting a C-Reactive Protein test, which tests for autoimmune stuff, a calprotectin fecal test, a complete metabolic set, a Giardia screening, an IgA serum test, a pancreatic elastic stool test, a sediment rate test, tissue transglutaminase IgA test, and a TSH W reflex test. So basically all of these tests are looking for what's going on with my liver. Am I having autoimmune stuff come up? What's going on with my fecal, like, stuff? Like, is there bacteria in there? Is there an infection in there? And yeah, what's going on with my thyroid? It's just testing for all the things, right, that could be going on. So I'm doing that through kind of traditional Western medical the path. And then with my naturopath, I met with her, gave her the updates, you know, and we're going to be pursuing more testing. So this is the testing I'm doing because it makes sense for my story, for my path, okay? So the testing that I'm doing is I'm getting a metal toxicity test, I'm getting a mold exposure test, which I think it's called like microtoxins or something, And I'm going to be getting through a biological dentist, I'm going to be going and getting like a CT, MCT scan, which is looking for if there's going to be a pocket of bacteria that has grown where I got my tooth implant. So why these tests make sense for me is because all of my symptoms started happening after I got the titanium tooth implant when I was like 17, 18, right? Something fundamentally changed about my body after I got that, after that procedure happened. And so, you know, what it could be, maybe there's something going on, maybe there's metal that's like the titanium, or if there's, because sometimes there's other metal in tooth implants that's seeping through my, you know, jawbone and getting into my body. That's a potential. We're going to be testing for that. If that is what's going on, there's a whole treatment plan, metal chelation. They put like an IV in your body, and they put like charcoal and some other weird thing in your body, and it binds to the metal, and then la 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 la. Hopefully it's not that. That's like really the worst case scenario. I really hope it's not the metal toxicity. Because I can't take this tooth out, baby. Like, this is in there for life. It's an extremely expensive and long-term procedure. So that's one thing. The second thing we're treating for is the mold toxicity. That's because I just, you know, I spent 4 years in Portland, Oregon, in the Pacific Northwest, where literally most of the places I lived had water damage and mold. So that just makes sense to test for that. And then the other thing, which is the pocket of bacteria, what can happen for people who have tooth implants and for root canals is it creates this pocket of air where bacteria can grow, and it creates a chronic infection that is going into your body, and then the body's having to fight it off. So I did meet with my biological dentist a few months ago, and I asked him about it, and I was like, hey, do you think this is a thing? Like, should I get tested for it? And he was kind of like, people who have bacterial things going on in their mouth usually can taste it, smell it, feel it, or see it. And I can't see that with you. My tooth implant looks amazing. It's great. You can't even tell like where it is, but it's there. But then I go and I see my naturopath, and she's like, look, I've met with multiple people who they Okay. She's like, I've met with multiple people who you couldn't see the bacteria, you couldn't smell it, you couldn't taste it. And once they did the MCT scan and they saw that it was there, like it was still there, because like it's so high up. That's the thing about tooth implants. It's like an inch up in my jaw. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but if that is what it is, the treatment's pretty simple. You get an ozone shot where the bacterial pocket is, and then it goes away, and then I don't know what else. I need to do more research. But that's a potential, okay? So that's where I'm at. That is where I'm at. And you know, I asked her a few questions, which is, why is it that I do the low Fodmaps diet and nothing changes? And the reason why, this is what she told me, is because I do not only just have SIBO. I have SIBO, but I have a lot of other things. So the low Fodmaps diet doesn't really work for me. It's just like, it kind of helps, but it doesn't really help, okay? So that's one thing I wanted to say, is maybe you're trying the low Fodmaps diet and it doesn't work. Well, it's probably something else that's going on with your body. The other thing that I'm really trying to gather information on is this whole thing about the hormonal stuff. Like, why is my digestive and hormonal systems influencing each other? And there's two things that I want to share with you. If you are a female, if you have a womb and like you are having hormonal stuff come up with your digestive stuff, this is what I have learned. Number one, if you have SIBO, if you have gut dysbiosis, the bacteria in your small intestine and in your gut dies off, and it creates toxins when it dies off. And when it does that, your liver is having to process the toxins, and when it's having to process the toxins, it is overwhelmed. It's at capacity. It's not able to process your hormones. So your hormones have to be processed, and if they can't be processed in the liver, then they're going to process through other ways, including your skin, through acne, and through, you know, your hormonal cycle, your menstrual cycle. So that's one potential. The other potential that I just learned about today, that could be causing it. We don't know, but this is what could be happening. So for me, I experience anxiety around my health. I actually experience extreme anxiety around my health. When I learn new information about my health, I actually experience what I think is a trauma response, or like a panic attack. And my understanding of why that is, and this may resonate with you if you've been dealing with chronic long-term digestive issues, is that for me, this whole experience has almost been like a complex PTSD traumatic experience. This has been a traumatic experience for me. Over many, many years, I have dealt with really painful, mysterious, confusing, and scary symptoms. People have not been able to provide me answers. I've really tried hard to get testing and to figure out what's going on with my body. I've had people tell me crazy things about what it is and what it could do. All of these things have been really scary, right? And that's happened over many, many years as I've been trying to figure this out. This has been traumatic for me. And so my body actually experiences traumatic responses when I'm learning about new information about what's going on with my health, when I get a new test result, or when I learn something new. That's why I have to be careful with how much podcast I listen to about SIBO, because it's just totally overwhelming. Okay, so how does that relate to the hormones? The way that it relates, and this was so helpful to hear, and it's, when you do research, everyone, it is common knowledge that IBS and SIBO is connected to chronic anxiety. They're together. And one of the reasons why my naturopath was talking about this is because this is what can happen. If you have SIBO and gut dysbiosis, the bacteria dies off. Now, most people who have chronic digestive issues have intestinal permeability, which is also called leaky gut, which is controversial, but in the health world, but is still a thing, okay? It's a thing. And so you have this bacteria that's dying off, and it's going through this impermeable, gut, permeable small intestine, and also overflow from the liver, and it can get into the blood. Now, when the dead bacteria gets into the blood, your body is registering the dead cells of the bacteria as foreign entities in the blood, and therefore an infection in the blood. So what that can signify to the body is to up cortisol levels, to basically tell your mind something is going on that is bad in the body. You have a blood infection, something's not right here. Now, when you have this chronic cortisol pumping through your body, you're going to experience anxiety and hypervigilance around what's going on with your health. And, that could be what's happening for me. And what can happen is if your body is chronically producing cortisol levels, your cortisol levels can deplete. So the way that your body tries to fill up that cortisol is by taking some of your progesterone. Now, progesterone is what supports you having a balanced hormonal cycle. So if your body's taking the progesterone, which the body can convert it into cortisol because it's a hormone, then it can affect your hormonal cycle, and your body's not able to have the correct amount of estrogen and progesterone levels it needs to have a regular kind of ovulatory cycle. So that's what my naturopath thinks is happening, and it relates to the anxiety, because if you think about it, I really do experience this. I'm there is something going on with my body. It is not right. I need to figure this out. It could lead to something worse. It could lead to an autoimmune condition. I need to figure this out. I feel like I'm going to die. That's what it feels like viscerally in my body. And it's I feel like sometimes I'm going crazy, and it's so helpful and validating to hear from a doctor there is a biological reason you may be experiencing that, and it's totally normal and okay, and it means that you are in touch with your body's communication to you. So if you're experiencing that, I hope that is helpful information. So a couple other things that I'll share is just like the supplements that I've been taking. So when I got off of that, when I got off of the rounds of Rifaximin, and I talk about this in the last video, I started taking a motility activator, which basically when you take a motility activator, it supports the anatomical functioning of your GI tract after you take the Rifaximin. So I started taking ginger, I don't know if you can see that very well, 1,000 milligrams a night. I started with this, but what happened for me is it would keep me up at night because the ginger was so powerful that it would actually, like, I'd feel this cooling sensation. I couldn't do it. So then I started taking this. It's called Motility Activator by Integrative Therapeutics. I'll put it in the bottom so you know what it is. It's basically, it has ginger in it, but it also has artichoke, and so it wasn't as strong, and I could take this and it would be fine. And I only took 1 capsule a night. So I was on those 2 things. Now my naturopath has told me to stop taking those 2 things because obviously the Rifaximin didn't work, and the SIBO, you know, I haven't healed the SIBO, and this isn't, it's only supposed to be taken if the Rifaximin treatment worked, and so I stopped taking that. Now I wanted to say about another thing that I've been taking. I started getting into Ayurveda, as you know you do when you have a chronic condition and you're trying to find answers, and I learned about this supplement called Triphala. Now the reason why I want to tell you about Triphala is I started taking it without asking my naturopath first. And I found out today that Triphala does not work for people who have chronic diarrhea. Oops, you know, whatever. You know, you're going to do what you're going to do. So I tried it. Definitely made my diarrhea worse, but I wasn't really sure. Like, I guess it's really good for people who have chronic constipation, okay? So if you have constipation, go ahead and use the Triphala. But it's not good if you have chronic diarrhea. So Ayurveda, that didn't really work. But it was worth a try. So that's my updates for you. I'm still in the journey, y'all. I'm learning a lot, and honestly probably gonna drop at least $1,000 on these tests that are coming up. It's a lot, and you know, it's just like, I'm fucking over it, guys. It's been so long. So that's where I'm at. I hope these are helpful, and really, like, good luck, and I'll keep you updated as I do my tests. Okay, bye.